Let's just wait for around 7 minutes. So
Sure.
2 minutes till 4, and then 5 minutes case, what we call Indian Standard Time. So
Sure. Absolutely.
So Anupam Da has joined. Hello, Anupam Da.
Good to see Anupam.
Sorry, I was muted. Hello. Good afternoon to all.
Good afternoon, Professor Chakravarti. Thank you.
Neptune, how are you?
Good, Dana. Okay.
Yeah.
I think we are still seeing the blue screen, sir. You have to go back to the
Yes.
RDS.
I know. I came to that so that I can see you guys.
Okay.
But
Good.
Can you see the whole screen now?
Yes.
Okay.
Perfect.
So I'll come back to that, whenever.
Sure.
Yeah. Oh, can you see my screen now?
Yes, absolutely. No problem.
Oh, now I can see you guys and the screen both.
Oh, fantastic. You managed.
I don't know. Supposed to be. Sumita, how are you?
Yes, fine.
Thinking of you all yesterday.
Yes.
Thinking about Bhutan geology and all that.
Bhutan geology, Bhutan, Sikkim, Arunachal, and all those.
You had worked in Arunachal also, right, Sumita?
Huh?
You had worked in Arunachal too, right?
Yes, I had worked in the western part of Arunachal.
Okay. Coming or further west, Bhutan border. Which part of Arunachal you worked on? I cannot hear Sumita. Hello, Santanu.
Which part of Arunachal? You asked.
Arunachal, which part? Western part, but which part of western part?
Western part, the middle part where the dolomites are exposed, then the Bomdila group with the slices of gneisses in between, and then further to the north, that window, this
Lumla.
window structure.
Lumla window.
That doubtful window or that highly debated window. Window is further to the east. And then I went on the road up towards Bomdila. I didn't go up to Bomdila. Then I took a leftward turn and entered the jungle roads and forest roads and all that. There are places, the names I don't remember now. Those are not too important to remember. And my purpose was to go and come out through the Bhairavkund area, the tri-junction of Arunachal, Bhutan, and Assam. But I couldn't take that traverse. That was long back.
I'm kind of surprised. There are traverses that even you cannot take. I said there are traverses that even you cannot take. That's surprising.
There were other difficulties, other challenges there.
Yeah, that's true. Unforeseen challenges are always there.
Santanuda has joined. I think Santanuda.
Yes, I can see him.
Sir has also joined.
Yes.
Good. So I'll give it 2 more minutes and then we will start.
Yeah, all my American, gurus, Dhruva Babu called and he said, look, Neptune, it's 3:30 in the morning in Phoenix, so he cannot join. But he said, please make sure that there's a recording of it. And my advisor, Ashish Basu, he also called and he said, look, I nowadays wake up at 9:30. So I sleep late. So there's no way I can get up at 6 or 6:30 in the morning. So they won't be there. But I'm really interested for people in India to be there. Especially people who have some idea about Arunachal geology, so they can point out, whatever, mistake I'm doing, whatever the error in my thinking or in my logic, and I'll very much welcome that. So that's my request to all the audience, that don't try to be polite, just steer into it. Anything you think doesn't make sense, be blunt about it. That's the only way science can advance. And I think many of you possibly don't know, we have Saurin Bhattacharya, S.K. Bhattacharya. He was Dean of Earth Science in PRL. And I think he is one of the topmost expert on stable isotope, especially clumped isotopes in the world. And a very dear friend from Presidency College. Good to see Asha, you are here. How are you, Asha? These are the people I met in the BHU conference. Sion is here, nice. And wonder if Sion still has that same beard. I think they cannot speak because they're muted, perhaps.
No, anybody can speak, no problem.
Okay.
Just that they're shy, that's why not speaking.
Structural geologists shouldn't be shy. Yeah, scientists should not be shy.
Anybody from IIT Kharagpur going to join?
I don't see anyone from IIT Kharagpur yet.
Claude,
I was a student at IIT Kharagpur.
Okay. Ion is there, yeah.
I was a student at IIT Kharagpur.
Okay.
Then sir, you are included in the IIT Kharagpur group.
Yes, I am a KGPN.
All right, I think it's 6 minutes past 4, so I think better we start the meeting today.
Sure.
So thank you very much, everyone, for joining in this afternoon. And this is the last virtual talk before we meet for RDS 8. If I may request others to mute for some time, and then because there is some feedback coming. Yeah. Thank you. So this is the last virtual talk before we meet at RDS 8 in IISER Bhopal. And I think from the screen I can see, many of you will be coming. You have already registered. Soon we will be sending the final list of presentations, posters, etc. And your accommodation, your travel details we will be asking. So some more work to be done, but we have received a very good response. Almost 130 delegates from different parts of the country will be joining, and that's pretty good number for a conference which is dedicated to a very special theme. So I would really look forward welcoming you to IISER Bhopal next month. And today we are really privileged to have with us Professor Neptune Srimal from Florida International University. And he is going to deliver a talk on a novel, robust, and contrarian model for the tectonic evolution of the Northeast Himalaya. So I have the privilege to introduce Professor Srimal now. Professor Srimal graduated from Presidency College, Kolkata with geology honors in 1969. He did his MSc in geology from University of Calcutta in 1971. He worked briefly as a junior research fellow in the Wadia Institute of Himalayan Geology before joining the Himalayan Geology Division of the Geological Survey of India in 1974. During his stint in the Himalayan Geology Division, Professor Srimal carried out structural and metamorphic mapping in the Kumaun and Garhwal Himalaya, also led several geological expeditions to the Ladakh and Karakoram during 1978 to 81. And this is the work that actually formed the foundation of his PhD thesis, which he carried out at University of Rochester. Just a moment. And then when he returned to India, he joined the Geochronology and isotope geology group of the Geological Survey of India, and he retired there as a director in the year of 2000. And in between, he took part in establishing the National Geoscientific Database of India and was the first database administrator as well. For the last 24 years, he has been teaching in the Florida International University. He spent a sabbatical year in India during 2022 to 2023 and carried out geological studies in Ladakh and Arunachal Himalayas in collaboration with Geological Survey of India. So the work that he will be presenting today is a partial outcome of that trip. So with this brief introduction, may I now invite Professor Srimal to present his, and I will request sir to restrict the talk maybe within 40 minutes, and then we will have a good question and answer session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Jyotirmoy. And it's really very nice to see many of the old friends present here. Now, the talk that I'll be presenting today is part of a project that I'm carrying out in collaboration with the Geological Survey of India, and they have been very helpful. So I first must acknowledge their efforts in this. The other people who have worked me with the two GSI geologists, Manoj Sahu and K. Sekhose from Geological Survey of India, they went into different parts of the field in Arunachal with me. Prashanto Sannal in IISR Calcutta, he carried out some organic carbon lipid analysis on my behalf. And David Foster from University of Florida, he is also a collaborator in this project, and he carried out some hafnium and uranium dating of some of the granites here. You all know that Arunachal is a huge area, and there are many aspects, many facets to this work. I'll try to restrict myself to only the four major things, 4 or 5 things that has appealed to me, and I'll very much welcome, as harsh criticism as you can make of these ideas, because that's the main purpose of bringing it to all of you. Okay, now I have to figure out how do I go to the next slide. Give me 1 second. Can you see it?
No, the slides are not moving, unfortunately.
Okay, give me 1 second. Can you see anything now?
No, still the title slide.
Okay, let me see.
Title slide is intercepted sometimes by a blue slide. That's all.
Give me 1 second. Nothing visible, huh?
No, we just can see the title slide, sir.
Okay, how about now?
Yes, it's moving. Perfect. Go ahead.
Okay,
please.
thank you so much. All right, we all know that Himalayan mountain chain, about 2,500 kilometers long, is divided lengthwise into a number of subdivisions. And perhaps we all know that at the foothills are the Neogene molassic sediments, which are unmetamorphosed continental sediments that we call the Siwalik group, that thrust over along the main boundary fault by the lesser Himalayan sequences, which in turn, lesser Himalayan sequences are lowly metamorphosed or unmetamorphosed, quartzite phyllites and stuff like that, and limestone. And the lesser Himalayan sequences are thrust over along the main central thrust by higher grade schist and gneisses that we call the central crystallines. The central crystallines are overlain by the Tethyan Himalayan sediments along the South Tibet detachment system, which is a normal fault, as you can see over here. And Tethyan sequence, as we know, are mostly unmetamorphosed Cambrian to Eocene sedimentary sequences with some notable breaks in between. Now, in both ends of the Himalayas, the Himalayan mountain chain takes a dramatic southerly turn, and those are the places we call the syntaxes. There's one in the western syntaxis that's near the Langa Parbat, and the other is the eastern syntaxis that you see in this purple box over here. That is situated in the Arunachal Pradesh of northeastern India. Now, traditionally, I would say from the work of Godwin Austen in 1875, the geologists have always extended all the Himalayan sequences to the northeast Himalaya in the Arunachal Pradesh. So the lowly metamorphosed sequences they have called the lesser Himalayas. The schist and gneisses they have called the central crystallines. Tethyan stuff they don't find there. But north of the Tethyan sequence in the Himalaya is the Indus-Sangpo suture zone with the Ophiolites, and there are bands of ultramafic rocks in northeast also that has been correlated with the Indus-Sangpo suture. And north of the Indus-Sangpo suture, is the Ladakh-Gangdezi batholith of Paleocene age. And those have been correlated with the Lohit plutonic complex that you can see in this small purple thing over here. And so that's basically how the rocks in Arunachal Pradesh or Northeast Himalaya have been correlated with the rest of the Himalayas. Okay. Now, in my today's presentation, I will try to bring out that none of the rocks that we see in the Northeast Himalaya are correlatable with the rest of the Himalayas. Okay. So I will present the rocks in the Arunachal are distinct from the rocks of the rest of the Himalayas. And I'll also, kind of extend my neck to propose that these are correlatable with the Shillong Meghalaya Plateau and possibly to the Eastern Ghats. The rocks that have been correlated with the lesser Himalayan sequences in the Northeast Himalayas, which I'm just using a common term called metasedimentaries, but they have been called Rupa group, they have been called Boundilla group, they have been called metasedimentaries. They have been all type kind of different names. But since they are unfossiliferous, they have been considered, they're still being considered as Proterozoic. And I'll try to convince you that it's not Proterozoic, but it's Permian. Okay. The Ophiolites, which I just mentioned, which are the continuation of, which is thought to be the continuation of Indus-Sangpo suture, I'll try to propose, I'm proposing that those are not even the Ophiolites in the sense that they don't belong to a subduction zone. They are not subduction zone related ultramafics. Okay. But instead, they represent continental rifts. Okay. The Lohit plutonic complex that's been correlated with the Ladakh-Gangdezi batholith, I'll say that no, they are not even related. They did not form by subduction, and they are not relatable with the Ladakh-Gangdezi batholith. And in the end, I'll try to convince that the geology of the Arunachal Pradesh basically represents two generations of continental rifting, one Permian and one Cretaceous. So let's firstly take a brief look at the map of Arunachal Pradesh, and that's another problem because fieldwork was so difficult, as Sumita and others know. It almost rained throughout the year. There was thick jungle everywhere. It was difficult to go there was hardly any infrastructure, hardly any roads. So the geological map for Arunachal is still, I would say, a work in progress. We still don't really have a good geological map of Arunachal Pradesh. So having said that, here is the geological map of Arunachal that was made by Geological Survey of India. And this is India. That's Arunachal Pradesh. That's the state of Arunachal Pradesh. And you can see that geology of Arunachal Pradesh we can divide into two parts. The Western Arunachal, which is mostly dominated by the Permian tectonics, and the Eastern Arunachal, which is mostly dominated by the Cretaceous tectonics. Again, in the absence of any good geological map, I am picking up the best that I could get. And this is mapped by Burhanuddin and Grover of Geological Survey of India. In Western Arunachal, the thing that I want you to notice is we have Siwaliks, which is called Siwaliks, the yellow band at the bottom. That's overlain along a thrust by these blue-colored rocks, which are the Gondwanas. The local names are Bicham and Bhareli Formation. And these are thrust over by a sequence of gneisses, banded gneisses, and metasedimentaries. Now, these metasedimentaries have been given different names in different places. So the names at Dedza, in Tenga is called Tenga Formation, at Dedza is called Dedza Formation, at Chilipam it's called Chilipam Formation, at Ketabadi is called Ketabadi Formation. Essentially the same sequence of sediments. Only thing is the relative proportion of individual lithology might be different, because somewhere you might see more metavolcanic, somewhere you might see more limestone, somewhere you can see more quartzite, and so forth. And if you look at the cross section along AB, again this is by Burhanuddin and Grover, you can see what we see is the Siwaliks and the Gondwanas, the Bicham and Bhareli, and there are several parallel belts of metasedimentaries that's shown as orange over here with banded gneisses in between. And these are also metasedimentaries. They are called Dirang group. And then we have more gneisses further north, the Sela gneisses. Okay. So Tenga, Dedza, Chilipam, Ketabadi, these are mostly low to medium grade metasediments. These are all part of the metasediments. And so, they have been included in one group called the Bombdida group and have been considered to be a Proterozoic age. They also have been called the Rupa group by Desels and others. But one thing is true, that whoever's worked there, they have noticed they are very similar. So they try to clump them into one group. Okay, the lithology is very similar in all of those, and they consist of ripple marked and cross-bedded feldspathic lithic quartzite, sometimes with a basal conglomerate. Volcanics, which is mostly metabasalts, and now represented by foliated amphibolites. They occur interbedded with the gneisses and also with the quartzites. They are again and banded gneisses, but many of those banded gneisses, I believe, are metarrhythmites. The layering that we see there is not metamorphic layering, but is possibly primary layering that we are seeing there. The mica cyst, very noticeable in all of these formations are carbonaceous phyllites, a graphite cyst, basically metamorphic variant of organic phyllites with organic carbon. And we see limestone marble and also evaporites. At least in my last field work, when I started looking at the thin sections, I started seeing some evaporites that have escaped notice of previous worker. And in the presence of organic carbonaceous shale, evaporites, limestone marble, arcosic sandstone, these are all very typical of a Rift Valley sequence. So that also leads me to believe that these are Rift Valley sequences. And I believe they occur in parallel belts, and they show typical Rift Valley lithological sequence. So in a typical Rift Valley, as you can see in this in the diagram over here, we have a basement. Here they are represented by the gneiss. This is the rift itself. And within the rift, you have some proximal deposits, some distal deposit, and some marine deposits. As the basin gets deeper, you get more and more marine deposits. What you see here in the proximal deposit, you see conglomerate and coarse sandstone. In the distal deposit, you see finer sandstone, siltstone, rhythmites. And in the marine sequence, you see carbonaceous shells and limestones. So whatever we see in Arunachal, sedimentologically, they are absolutely copybook Rift Valley sequences. There's no deep water sediments there. They are all continental sediments or shallow marine sediments there. Okay. Now, when a continent rifts, either we can have one single rift, as you can see in the picture on the top, or we can have distributed extension where you see a number of rift valleys, and it's basically host and gravens. In the host, you see the uplifted basement rock, possibly represented by gneisses and granites. And in the gravens, you see syn rift and post rift sediments. So the way these metasedimentaries are distributed in Arunachal leads me to believe that some of those are folded repetitions and some of those were deposited in parallel rift basins coeval with the Gondwana sediments. And I might as well mention that Gondwana sediments also have the same lithology, same Archeosic sandstone or lithic arenites, carbonaceous shales, and limestones. Okay. And I'll show you some evidences that leads me to believe that these metasedimentaries are of Permian age, basically coeval with the Gondwanas, but deposited in parallel rift basins. Firstly, lithology. The lithology that you see in the metasedimentaries and the lithology that you see in the Gondwana are almost identical. So much so that people who have done the mapping, they have a hard time drawing a boundary between the Gondwana rocks and the so-called metasedimentaries. I talked to people who have worked there in the field. I talked to Dhruvo Ganguly, Basab Mahanta, and they all said, they had a hard time. And sometimes by looking at the map, you can figure out that people have been forced to put a boundary, like a thin band of midi-quartzite showing differentiation with the Gondwanas and things like that. So in the field, you really cannot differentiate between them. So you have an unbroken contact between them. Okay. If you look at these Gondwanas, these metasedimentaries and the Gondwanas, they contain interbedded amphibolites, interbedded metabasalts, which are represented by amphibolites, which are foliated. On the other hand, we have Cretaceous, early Cretaceous Abor volcanics, which are not foliated. So that indicates that these are at least not Cretaceous. These are not Abor volcanics. These are not the sedimentaries associated with the Abor volcanics called the Inkiang Formation. So this must be something older. Okay. Then, if you look at, see, these were all considered as Proterozoic. So I collected some carbonaceous samples, graphitic schist, as well as carbonaceous shells and phyllites, and gave it to Prashanto Sannal in IISER. And in the graphitic schist, which is thermally most metamorphosed, that's the one he analyzed. And this is the picture he got from a graphite schist from Yangsangchu Formation, which is the northeastern part of eastern Arunachal. And it clearly shows the signature of carbon molecules he separated lipids, and from that he looked at the alkenes and looked at the carbon signature of the alkenes. And these are showing the different molecules of carbon that's there, or rather organic carbon material that's there. And this is very typical, he says, that we get these molecules are derived from plant materials. Now, plant materials did not evolve much later, in Paleozoic. Even in early Paleozoic in the Cambrian, you don't have much plant material. So this also indicates that first thing, these rocks represent when life was present and when plant was present on this world. So they cannot be Proterozoic. And most likely they are at least upper Paleozoic by looking at the molecular structure, the plant derivation of these molecules. So that's another, none of these are clear-cut evidences, but all these strengthen the idea that these are not Proterozoic. Okay. Then there have been reports of Permian fossils, some from rolled blocks, some from small outcrops near Dalbuing, but that tells us that Permian rocks are there. Okay. Now, if you look in the field, if you look at the rocks itself, so here I have three pictures on the lower part of the screen. You can see these are all overturned, current-bedded quartzite, and one is from Gondwana, one is from metasedimentaries, and one even from what has been called the Dirang, equivalent of Dirang in Manigao, in the Mechuka area. And you see they're identical in the field. If I put the three next to each other, you would not be able to differentiate between them. They all have the same characteristics, same lithology, same kind of other associated rock types. So that also indicates that they might be very similar in age at least. Then again, Jason, Ali, and Atchison, they did paleomagnetic studies from the metavolcanics of the eastern Arunachal. And they found that these metavolcanics indicate to a paleolatitude of 58 degrees south. 58 degrees south, that's where India was in Permian to early Mesozoic. So that also is an indication that these rocks are possibly Permian in age, because the volcanics formed in India when where India was in Permian. Okay, so we have data from field, we have data from lithology, from the rock types, paleomagnetic studies, we have from organic carbon studies. Then I also looked at the detrital zircon from these rocks. I told you that we have Gondwanas at the foothills in the western Arunachal, and then we have the metasedimentaries, which have been grouped as Rupa group by descents. And if I go back to this slide, here these rocks, sedimentaries here have been called Lower Inkyong Formation by Upendra Baral and his co-workers, and these have been called the Upper Inkyong Formations. To me, by looking at the criterion that I saw there, these contain foliated amphibolites and those kind of quartzites, which is very different from unmetamorphosed quartzite that you see in the Abor volcanics. So I differentiate the two, and I think these belong to the metasedimentaries, whereas these rocks, where you say near Sipong, near Inkyang, that's Dalbuing, that's Inkyong. I say these are much younger. So his Upper Inkyong Formation and Lower Inkyong Formation, to me, are two very different groups of rocks. So if we look at the rocks here, that is Lower Inkyong Formation. These are the Gondwana, and these are the detrital zircon signature from Rupa group, which is part of the metasedimentaries. You can see all of them contain 500 million year, a very prominent 500 million year detrital zircon peak. So obviously, this metasedimentaries got to be younger than 500 million years. So they cannot be Proterozoic. They have to be Paleozoic or younger. That's a sure indication. Then if you look at the peaks in the Lower Inkyong Formation, you have a prominent about 1700 million year peak, about a prominent close to 1000 million year peak, and a prominent 500 to 600 million year peaks. So their detrital zircon signature are very similar. So that also leads me to formation. First, that Rupa group is not Proterozoic, and secondly, Rupa group, Lower Inkyang, all these metasedimentaries are possibly the same age as Gondwana. That these are not lesser Himalayas that people believe till now is very clear from the detrital zircon signature from the lesser Himalayan composite. That's work by Gerels and Desels. And you can see in the lesser Himalayas, you don't see any detrital zircon younger than 1550 million years. There's no, it ends in Mesoproterozoic. There's no Neoproterozoic or younger zircon anywhere in the lesser Himalayan sequences. So obviously these rocks are not lesser Himalayan sequences. These are very different. And as I said, most likely they all have a very prominent Gondwana signature. I also looked at, if these rocks are not Himalayan rocks, if Arunachal rocks are not in Himalayan rocks, then what are those? So I just looked at the detrital zircon signature of the Shillong group, and I saw there are lots of, Shillong group also, you have a 500 million year old detrital zircon signature. So Shillong group, which has been considered as Proterozoic, I said these also cannot be Proterozoic. They have to be younger. And very similar detrital zircon signature than the Gondwanas and the Rupa groups. So I'll raise this question. Don't these rocks seem to be correlatable with the Shillong group? So anyway, talking about metasedimentaries, based on lithological similarity, rare finds of fossils, similar detrital zircon signature, presence of organic carbon that shows at least Paleozoic age, and paleomagnetic data, we consider these metasedimentaries to be coeval with the Permian Gondwana sediments and not with the lesser Himalayan sediments. Okay, so if these are not Himalayan rocks, then what are those? I'll tell you, just take a look at this is the map of Northeast Himalaya by Geological Survey of India. These are on the north, this pink, these are, it's Bhapuli and Bomdila. That's the Western Arunachal rocks. And these are the Shillong Plateau and Nikir Hill rocks. You see that if you remove the Brahmaputra Valley, these occur in strike continuation of each other. And they have, as I showed, they have very similar characteristics. So I believe that everything indicates that the Khasi group and the Shillong group are possibly continuation of our Inkyong group and the metasedimentaries. Again, I have not seen the Shillong group rocks very well. I mean, many, many years back, 1980s or 70s, we collected sample when we dated Mylium and Nongpo granites. But hopefully this year I'll get some opportunity to take a look at that. Okay. Let's now talk about Abor volcanics. Abor volcanics occur in the eastern part of Arunachal, as I told you, it's right over here. You see along. So this is a sketch geological map that I prepared. As I said, that I was not happy with any of the published geological map, and they did not match each other also. They are all very different. So as base, I have used the map that was produced by Surinder Singh, in which Dhruvo Ganguly also took an active part in making that map. So the Abor, Inkyang volcanics, those are from there. So this purple patch is the Inkyang formation, and this dark violet patch are the Abor volcanics. I just wanted to show you where they occur. And on both sides of those you have the metasedimentaries. In the northeastern part, these are the Lohit plutonic complex, and the small purple bands over here, these are the occurrences of mafic, ultramafic rocks that we saw there. We'll talk about that later. Okay. So Abor volcanics, I would not say much because I don't have any contradiction with the present ideas. You can see these are the Inkyang formation sediments, or the places. These have also been called midi-quartzite. These are the scolitos fossils that occur with them. You can see that these are totally unmetamorphosed. And if you look at their detrital zircon signature, the upper Inkyang signature is very different from the lower Inkyang. In upper Inkyang, you have younger, Cretaceous detrital zircon. In the lower Inkyang, you don't. So I separate these two, and you can see that these are very different from the metamorphics. They are not metamorphosed, and they have younger detrital zircon. Okay, the Abor volcanics that occur within them, they are tholitic to alkaline in nature, and similar volcanics are found in Australia. And Acharya Sahib, S.K. Acharya, in long time back in 2020 or even earlier, he correctly proposed that Abor volcanics represent rifting of India from Australia, and that has been more data from Baral and Oinam, the A.K. Singh's group. They have also established the age of the rifting between 145 to 130 million years, and they also have presented more data showing that these are rift-related volcanics and sediments, and related to the rifting of India from Australia. So I would not go much into that. The rifting took place when India and Australia were at 60 degrees south latitude. Here are some pictures of the Abor volcanics. You can see these are unmetamorphosed massive volcanics. Here on the picture on the right, you can see the amygdules. You can see that they are not stretched, they are not metamorphosed at all. And in this respect, they are very different from the metabasalts that we see from the rocks that I'm calling metasedimentaries for now. These are the Abor volcanics, dikes feeding the Abor volcanics within the sedimentaries. And again, as you can see, these are not metamorphosed. So basically, Abor volcanics was erupted when India and Australia rifted. Within these rift basins, we got the Inkyang formation rocks and also the volcanic. And also, when the rifting takes place, the continental crust got thinned. When continental crust gets thinned, asthenosphere rises. There's a drop in pressure, so you have a decompression melting with the asthenosphere, and that's what I believe produced many of the granites that we see in these places. Let's now talk about the Ophiolites, which, if I remind you, have been correlated with the Indus-Sangpo suture. And places where they occur, they are thought to be the continuation of the Indus suture. Again, coming back to my sketch map, see, look at these purple bands over there. These purple bands, the small purple bands, are the occurrence of mafic and ultramafic. This one over here, can you guys see my mouse pointer? Are you guys able to see my mouse pointer?
Not now.
Yes, we can see your point there, but they're very far away from your map.
Okay, if you can see my mouse pointer, that's fine. So you see these purple bands over there. These are the ultramafic rocks. This is near the Wadia Pass. It's called the Wadia Ophiolite, and these two occur along a major fault plane. Over here is a place called Tiding. Over here is Italian. Over here is Tooting. So this is called the Tiding-Tooting suture. And generally, so far, the proposal believe that these are part of the same ophiolite, and the Wadia Ophiolites is a nap with the root in the Tiding-Tooting suture, and these ophiolites have like a big clippe sitting on top of the metamorphics over here. Okay. So first thing, one problem I have in calling these things as ophiolite is there's no high pressure, low temperature metamorphic rocks, no blue schist anywhere over here. If you look at the sediments, at the rocks that occur along with the mafic, ultramafic sequences here, and there have been very good road traverses taken by Sandeep Nondia of GSI. I think he worked with Professor Sharma and other, GSI and Calcutta University, Jyoti Vishwajit, they have also worked. They have very good road traverses taken there, as well as people from Geological Survey. And you'll see that the rocks interbanded with these so-called ultramafics are gneisses and limestones. These are continental rocks or shallow marine rocks. There's no deep water sequences with any of those. And I think the A.K. Singh's group, Govindo Ainam and Amrito Datta, they looked at the limestone that associated with the Tiding and the Myodias. And from isotopic studies, they concluded that those limestones represent shallow hypersaline conditions of deposition. So obviously these cannot be deep water sediments. These cannot be trench sediments, which we are seeing there. Okay, so problem is that in Himalaya, wherever people see any ultramafic rock, any band of serpentinite, they try to put a subduction zone there. But mafic, ultramafic rocks occur in continental setting also without any subduction. Here's a picture from a paper by Dilek and Fuentes. You see when the continents, at the time of continental rifting, the continents get stretched. You see a number of rift basins. The purple over here is the asthenosphere, that's upwelling. And as a result of upwelling, there's a decompression. And as decompression, there's melting. And it melts, you get lots of gabbro-diorites. And those forms, that basically metasomatizes the entire mantle. And you see serpentinous peridotite intrusions also. That's exactly what we are seeing in Myodia and Tiding. Most of the ultramafic rocks are there serpentinized peridotites or serpentinites. You don't see the, you don't see the Steinman trinity there. You don't see the entire ophiolite sequence there at all. And as I said, they are all interbanded with continental rocks. And isotopic studies also indicate that those continental rocks are, even the marine rocks, even the limestones are deposited in a shallow marine hypersaline condition, not deep water conditions. So I reject the idea that these are all, anyway related to continental subduction, or anyway they are related to the Indus suture. Moreover, if you look at the geochemistry of these mafics and ultramafics, and again, I'm depending on the published data here. On the right are data by Datta et al. From Myodia. From Tiding Tooting suture zone. And on the left are data from the Myodia. Now you see these are discriminant diagrams that can separate fields of subduction related ophiolites and non-subducted related mafic, ultramafic rocks. So you can see the picture on the top. You can see most of the samples plot in G-morb. G-morb means garnet, morb where garnet is stable. And basically these are from continental basement, ocean continent transition zone, but these are not subduction zone ophiolites. Similarly, in a diagram by Sakani, where plot normalized thorium against normalized niobium, you see most of the samples plot in the ocean subduction, unrelated, rifted margin, ocean continent transition zone, mafic, ultramafic rocks. You see very few samples in the volcanic arc. Similarly, in the Tiding Tooting suture, you see most of these dark ones are the samples that was analyzed by Datta. You can see almost they all plot in the field of mantle peridotite, which is same as alpine peridotites. And nowadays, alpine peridotites are thought to represent continental, ocean continent transition zone and not suture zones. So this also clearly indicate these are very different from the cumulative ultramafics that you see in the subduction zone. So geochemically also, these ophiolites are not subduction related at all. Okay. That brings us to Lohit plutons. If these are not subduction zone, if these are not ophiolites, if there's no subduction zone there, then what created those granitic plutons? Okay. Again, looking at this picture, see this on the northeast part, you have these two bodies. These are the two bands of Lohit pluton. Often they are called East Lohit Pluton and the West Lohit Pluton. In between, you have metasedimentary rocks with rhythmites and evaporites, gypsum, anhydrites. Those kind of rocks are there. Again, those are very typical of a continental rift sequence. These are not subduction zone related sequence. Now, lithologically, there are three kinds of granites within the Lohit plutonic complex. One is a diorite and gabbros, as you can see there. And within the gabbros, you can see veins of diorites with a very diffuse margin. That indicates that they possibly the same source, and the diorites could have been derived by partial melting of the gabbros itself. And here is also inclusions of gabbros within the diorites. The gray ones here are almost of the same age as these diorites, but slightly younger in age, but overlapping in age with the diorites. And they are mostly tonalite, transamite, granodiorite in composition. In short, we can things that we call TTG in Archean context. And you can see the white bands over here. These are leucogranites. There are places where we have thicker leucogranites also, but this is the picture I could get immediately. Okay. Now, the next slide, I'll try to summarize all we know about these granites. Firstly, the round, you possibly can barely see it. The round symbols are the gabbro-diorites. The crosses over here are tonalite transamite, and the inverted triangles are leucogranites. And these data are, I have collected some are my own data, but most of them I have collected from work by A.K. Singh student, Vikramaditya, and also James Pebham here of GSI and other workers. Okay. So you can see that they have lithologically, they plot into very distinct fields. The granodiorite and tonalite transamites are a distinct field. Gabbro-diorites have a very distinct field, and the leucogranites or pure granites have a very distinct field. But when we plot them, we see that most of the transamite and the leucogranites they fall in the field of adacites. And so in this picture, this is the field of adacites, and this is the field of ADR, andesite, dacite, rhyolite, typically that you see in magmatism. This beige color, this orangish ellipse over here, that shows you where the Gangdisi batholith and the Lindsey-Zong volcanics plot. So you can see geochemically these are very different from the Ladakh Gangdisi batholiths. Okay, in the Shan diagram, all the gabbro-diorites fall in the field of they are metaluminous. The tonalite transamite, they overlap a field between metaluminous and paraluminous that indicate maybe these are mantle melts with crustal admixture, and almost all the leucogranites fall in the field of paraluminous granite. So you can see that they have different amount of mantle and crustal contributions. Okay. Now, if you look at their ages, gabbro-diorites, they range in age from 145 to 93 million years. Basically, I have put together all the published ages from gabbro-diorite, and including my age, I got about 136 million year age from the samples that I analyzed. The tonalite, transamite, granodiorite, they have isotopic age from 107 to 93. You can see that they have overlapping ages, but gabbro-diorites are slightly older and TTGs are younger. Leucogranites are much younger. They are Oligocene, Miocene in age and range in age from 35 to 30 million years. So obviously, their origin is very different from the gabbro-diorite and the TTGs. Okay. Now, gabbro-diorites, again, as I said, they overlap the field between ADR and adacites, and TTG and leucogranites, they all form in the field of adacites. Isotopically, the gabbro-diorites have a mantle signature with a very high epsa hafnium and epsa neodymium, indicating they are mantle derived without any crustal admixture. TTGs have also mantle signature, but initial strontium are slightly higher than the mantle values, indicate some crustal admixture, and their epsa hafnium values are also slightly lower than the gabbro-diorites, again indicate some crustal admixture. I don't have any hafnium neodymium data from leucogranites, but their high initial strontium 0.713 clearly indicate that they are formed by crustal anatexis. They formed by crustal signature. So where does this put? As I said, this age is very different. This chemical composition is very different from the Ladakh Gangdisi batholith. Here's a picture of Tibet. That's the main Tibet, and this part on the right, you see that the rock types that are exposed in the eastern Tibet. And as you can see in this this inset, this is where the eastern Tibet is, and south of that, right over here, are the Ladakh plutonic complex. Okay. Now, if you look at the Tibet, you have the Bangong Nujang suture in the north, Indus Sangpo suture in the south. In between, there are occurrences of mafic, ultramafic rock, as you can see over here. This is the Sikwanhue, Nakku, Namuhu, Melange zone. They used to call it earlier they used to call it an Ophiolite and a subduction zone, but lately I've seen that the Chinese are not saying as such. And there's another major fault, LMF. It's a Luo Badui Milashan fault. There's not much Ophiolites there, but they are very high pressure rocks like eclogites that are present along this fault. So some people had believed that this also might be some kind of a suture zone. Okay. Now, if you look at, so here, the purple ones, the dark purple with the violet ones, these are the granites. And these are all of early Cretaceous age, as you can see over here. And associated with these are sediments which are Cretaceous in age. And these are all continental sediments. So obviously in Cretaceous, there was a continental rift sediments going on when the granites intruded there. And this is very different from the calcaline Ladakh batholith of Paleocene age, as you can see over here. In this diagram, you can see over here, that's the age of the Ladakh batholith and Gangdeze batholith. And these are the age of the northern and central Tibet plutons. These are about 120, 130 million years. That's 50, 60 million years. This is the data from Pebam. He compiled all this data and he showed that these are the Lohit dates, 100 to 130 million years. And these are the age of Ladakh plutons. You can see that there's a 50, 60, 70, 80 million year age difference between the age of the Gangdeze batholith and the Lohit plutons. No island or volcanism continues for 70, 80 million years. So geochemically, age-wise, lithologically, map-wise, these are totally different and they are not related to Indus Sangpo suture. They're not related to continental subduction. Okay. So here's my conclusion. The volcano sedimentary rock formations considered Proterozoic formed during the Permian rifting of Changthang block. Well, I won't go into that. That's a different talk, when and how they formed. Lohit plutonic complex does not represent any kind of arc magmatism. They represent mantle-generated gabbro-diorite norites and tonalite transamite granodiorites formed sin rifting and due to form at the time of rifting. And then we have post-corrosional crustal-generated leucogranites. Okay. The Ophiolites that we thought represent subduction zone do not represent subduction zone, but they represent ocean continent transition. They are emplaced during the rifting of India and Australia. These are, I'm talking about Myodia Ophiolites. Whereas the teething Ophiolites possibly represent that Sikwanhue, Nakku, Namuhu zone. So these two Ophiolites, although very similar in age, formed in very different parts of the globe, I would say. They are possibly separated by 50 to 60 degrees of latitude when they formed. The Abor volcanics and the Yingjiang formation represent sin rift sequence formed during the rifting of India and Australia. And I think similar tectonic model we can apply in different other parts of India-Asia collision zone also, including Ladakh. Thank you very much for your patience, and I will very much welcome your criticism.
Thank you very much, sir. The really thought-provoking talk, and I hope, and I'm sure there will be many questions from the audience. So please raise your hand and let us take questions one after another. Okay, Anupamda, please go ahead.
Neptune, it's a nice illuminating talk. Thank you for that. New ideas that we are not very used to, and especially Arunachal geology, which we know very less about it. But my question is that you are actually proposing a continental rift model for the whole metasedimentary sequence. So you are not showing any kind of alkaline rocks there. Normally in a continental rift setting, we expect some alkaline rocks.
I have to look at those amphibolite, that was the interbandied amphibolite. Those are metamorphosed, but you get tholite to alkaline signature in many places. The alkaline volcanics, alkaline Permian volcanics are also not rare in the Himalayas.
So not even any cyanogranite or any kind of say highly sodic rich or even some kind of alkali rich feldspathic rock or something. That kind of thing
No.
are not seen in your map.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. But other than those interbedded metavolcanics, I saw any other volcanic sequences. But those are interbedded with arcosic quartzite. That's typical of a rift setting. The other thing is, there have been two different Permian rift that you see in the Himalayas. One was when the Changthang block rifted away from the Gondwana margin, and the evidence of that Permian extension you see, for example, in Panjal volcanics or in the Permian sediments in the Tethys, okay? And Panjal volcanics, you see both alkaline and tholitic signature. On the other hand, there have been Permian extension in roughly along India-Australia rift margin also. So in Australia also you have Permian basins, even coal-bearing basins, and even we have not seen big alkaline complexes, but that even in the Himalayan Gondwanas you do see lamprofiles, which are indicating of continental rifting.
Are you getting those things? At least some trace of that, or someone reported from that area? No.
No, I have not noticed. I have not done too much field work there either. But
I have another confusion because I was not very clear that this Permian, I'm not remembering all those names because it is new to me. Some of these metasediments that you are showing as a seam rift sediment phases, and the Gondwana equivalent sediment, which you are also showing as a Permian rift. So are they of the same rifting event or different?
I think they're all part of the same rifting event.
So in that case, the Gondwanas generally all over the subcontinent, the Gondwanas are considered to be a fluvial acoustic intracontinental sediments, except for Permian, those late marine incursions. But in your model, you are showing some, continental margin or ocean continent transition. So it is a marine sedimentation that you are proposing. So,
but those are all very shallow marine sediments. As I said, the rift basin, if a rift gets a little bit deeper, depending on how strong, how long that rifting continues, you get fluvial sediments, you get conglomerates, you get fluvial sediments, and eventually you might get some shallow marine limestone and carbonaceous shale. But we don't have any deep water sediments there.
So does that mean that in this area, at least in the northeastern Himalayas, the Gondwanas that you are seeing, do they mean that unlike the Central Indian Gondwanas, they are showing a marine incursion as early as Permian?
Yep. You in the Northeast India, you are asking whether in Northeast India there was a marine incursion. Yeah. As I said, the Northeast India, again, it's a work in progress, but we have a rift between India and Australia, a Permian rift basin there also. So it's possible.
So India and Australia finally rifted in Cretaceous, isn't it?
In Cretaceous.
Yeah.
But during the
Permian rifting is not directly related to India-Australia separation.
No. But there was a rift there. There's a rift sediments and volcanics and coal formations and stuff like that you see there. So possibly the Permian that we are seeing here, Permian rifting, whether it's part of Indo-Australian rifting or the part of Changthang rifting, that's the question. If it is part of the rifting of Changthang, remember the rift zone is far north. It's north of the Lhasa block. So we were far removed from the actual rift. So what we saw was this part of the distributed extension that you see in the continental interiors. And that might be one reason that we didn't get more volcanism, more alkaline intrusions.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Jain.
Yeah. Hello, how are you, Neptune?
Nice to see you.
Sorry, I missed you in Busan. I could not make it. But nice to hear you here. A few things I want to seek clarity. For example, this Inkyong formation.
Can you speak up a little?
Sir, your sound is
okay.
blurring, sir.
Yeah.
Please, can you
Pardon?
come closer to the mic?
Yeah,
Professor Jain.
okay. That's the problem actually. Actually, what was I was talking about the Inkyong formation.
Mm-hmm.
Am I audible now?
Yeah. What about Inkyong?
Yeah, Inkyong formation, the way it was proposed is different than what is being used now by Baral and others.
Yeah.
In the Yamne Valley, they have mapped a whole sequence which trends east northeast, west southwest. But
Okay.
the overall tectonic fabric of Inkyong formation is northwest southeast.
Okay.
So I'm not very sure what they are mapping as Inkyong is really Inkyong formation, or it is something different.
It's possible they might be, again, I have to look at their map or read about it. It's possible they're looking at the Permian, because remember, what they call the lower Inkyong is what I am calling the Permian.
Yeah,
Lower and upper Inkyong are very different.
Yeah, what is being called as the lower Inkyong is basically the Miri group, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And that trends, the trends are so different there, but their mapping is wrong, and hence I personally would not believe in their geochronology, though they have got good amount of data set, but what they are dating is, I am not very sure, because their map is too wrong. That's number one.
Yes, mapping was difficult. Yeah.
Coming to Abor volcanics. In Abor volcanics, there are two distinct ages. The one which you are talking about is say 145 to 130 million years. That is the one which is integrated with the sediments. But there's another group of rocks which are the gabbroic and dolomitic rocks, which include the Miri sequence, and which have also been dated by A.K. Singh, and that's also part of the Abor volcanics. But nobody talks about them because they are around 500 million years old. Zircon have given very distinct Concordia plots of 500 mm, whereas the other group is 145 to 130 mm. So what is the relationship between of these two sets of Abor volcanoes with the rocks which they are speculated?
Again, I think some of the gabbro some the gabbro they showed as intrusives.
Yes.
But when
that is the locality known as Banging, where they show it as intrusive.
Right.
Gabbros, and that's about 500 mm. So again, I'm not very sure what is, and I had talked to A.K. Singh, and he also does not spell what is the neutral relationship of these intrusive with the Miri quartzite, in which they show.
See, about the Miri quartzite, if you look at the Inkyong formation and go southeast, along the main road between Dambuk and Roing, that area, you cross near Seseri Nala, you cross the Miri quartzites. I mean, they are purple quartzites with intrusives that look like Abor volcanics. So I called GSI and said, what do you map it as? And they said, we call it Miri quartzite. So that Miri quartzite is very different from the Miri quartzite that you see next to Gondwanas in the Bhalukpong region. So I think Miri quartzite is a name we really should totally drop.
Yeah, I do not know.
So basically that Miri quartzite that occurs in Eastern Arunachal, the major part that GSI is called Miri quartzite, I'll call that as a continuation of Inkyong formation. Either you call the whole thing as Miri quartzite or you call whole thing as Inkyong formation. But those will be Cretaceous in age. About the gabbros, again, first thing I have to see whether it's what kind of contact they have. And then I have to look at the data. I think somewhere I read that they also got the Cretaceous age from that.
Which one?
From the gabbro. The gabbro they call the
no, not from the gabbro. Gabbro is Ediacaran or very late Proterozoic.
Again, 500 million year would not take it Proterozoic.
Yeah, the late 500. I am talking, loose manner, but it's around that time. Late Vendian, something like that. But it is definitely not Cretaceous as the other sequence is. The interested side volcanics are Cretaceous. They 145 to 130 MA at the other.
See, what happens is during continental rifting, as I also discussed, that you do get gabbro-diorites do form, as most of the Lohit plutonic complex has formed. And Inkyong also, Abor volcanics also related to continental rifting. So I would not be surprised if any gabbro-diorite form of the same age. Now, about the 500 million year age, we have to see whether, there's one possibility that this can be inherited, because these are coming through continental crust. They are getting implicit within the continents. So it's not impossible that they're inheriting some of the continental zircons also. So unless we look at the total zircon population and see which part of the zircon people are dating, it's very difficult to say exactly what will be its age. And if they're intrusive, into what I'm calling Permian, and there are other indications showing that those are Permian, then obviously they cannot be 500 million year old. On the other hand, if they're clear-cut intrusive, then what I'm calling Permian should not be Permian. Then they should be Proterozoic.
And lastly, you talked about you started in the very beginning, you talked about the extension of the Himalaya and the Shillong Massif. What do you think that where the Himalayas have ended in Arunachal Pradesh? And in what sense you are using the term Himalaya here?
It's a very good, very interesting question. So basically, I believe what we call Himalayas, the way we know, the Sivalik, the Mesoproterozoic lesser Himalayas, the crystallines, Darjeeling gneisses and the central crystallines, and the foothill Gondwana. I think those things end at Manas River in Bhutan.
And you don't get it further east?
I don't get it. Again, my knowledge is limited in the Bhutan geology. My knowledge is really very limited about everything. But Sumitra had done field work there. Sumitra is there, and I talked to him also. And if you remember, in Bhutan, we have a place where even along near the lesser Himalayas, we have Tethyan sediments, black mountain formations. Yeah. So I think that indicates that's possibly the end of the Himalayas, and that possibly represents some shallow marine sediments there.
Okay. So nice to talk to you.
Yeah. Sumitra?
Yes. I was listening, and I had earlier also some idea. I have heard your similar presentation in some other platform. Mm-hmm. The one, as a structural geologist, one thing I had discussed, I think a couple of months earlier in one of the presentations, that there are slices of gneisses repeated many times through what you call that Bombdila gneiss or whatever it is, that Rupa group or what. So within that metasediments, there are 3 or 4 gneisses. Gopendra Kumar Saab had mapped those gneisses bands. Mm-hmm. Parallel, just 30 or 40 kilometers west of that, in the eastern part of Bhutan Himalayas, which are the section I referred to, that from Bhairabkund further towards north, Jang Pangri Saab had mapped similar slices of gneisses, which he named that Jangthi, Ani, Uni, and all gneisses repeated many times. Initially, as a field geologist and as a working in the Himalayas, those appeared as imbricated slices of the basement emplaced. But those gave age of 1500, 1600, 1700 million years or like that. Now, in your presentation gives an idea that if it is a rift system, those may be that horst and graben sort of situation.
Absolutely.
Horst and Graben sort of situation. In that case, those are represented. So there is no conflict or no difficulty in explaining that 1700, 1500, 1600 million year age of those gneisses. And on that, these metasediments. And I had taken a few traverses. I was looking hard for evidence of thrusting or deformation along the contacts, but those were missing along that. So these gneissic bands, particularly those in the easternmost part of Bhutan, which Dr. Jangpangi has mapped, and those slices end asymptotically or acute at an acute angle to a tectonic line. If you look at the map published by Jangpangi,
look at this picture, Sumita. Look at this picture. On the, can you see the diagram?
This
that's the basement.
Basement with host
that's the repeated basement.
So
exactly, and these are all repeated bands of gneisses, and in between you have Paleozoic, and on top of you have seen rift. So it's very similar to our metasedimentaries, the basement gneisses, and the Inkyong formation and Dalbuing sitting on top of that.
Inkyong formation or Rupa formation, Rupa group, whatever it is. So this your presentation matches and very good can be explained, this age relationship and lack of any severe tectonism along the contacts. This contacts, although well exposed, there is no, as is expected in imbricated slices, repeated imbricated slices, those are absent there. So that initially in the field appeared somewhat difficult to explain. Now coming to the other point, those repeated slices of the Bhutan Himalayas, those westward, they end at an acute angle or almost asymptotically to a tectonic line which Jangpangi has mapped. And please look at the 1976, I think, Himalayan Geology publication of Mr. Jangpangi. Hello?
Yes. Yes, go ahead.
So there, all these 6, 7 slices, they all end at an acute angle or almost asymptotically to that tectonic line. Now, we were discussing or thinking about discussing the end of where the Australian rift zone ends and the Himalaya ends and the Australian, the boundary between these two. I think that tectonic line where these slices asymptotically or at an acute angle ends, that is one of the very interesting features, and that may hold, that may give us some idea about where to put the contact or boundary between the Australian rift system and the Himalayas.
I totally agree with you. And that's a challenge to our structural geologists, that this is one place where you can see how the two margins of the continent and the two rifts can interact.
A very difficult area, but that is a very challenging, very interesting area to see, because you were talking about the Manas Valley area where you wanted to put the boundary between this further towards west, but it will be this tectonic line which I am talking about from the Jangpangi's map, that is further towards east, and that is a very interesting feature to a structural geologist. Remaining most of your evidences very convincing, though, were from petrology, your isotope geology, and other things. So, but as a structural geologist, those features, many times I had looked at the map and appeared very interesting. And today, that Horst and Graben and other things, that 1700 million year age of those gneisses plus this metasediments, which you think are maybe Permian or Cretaceous, so that can be explained by that method. Okay,
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Very interesting talk.
Absolutely, that's what you see. You see gneiss, just next to that you have unmetamorphosed sediment. I said, either you got to have a very huge thrust, but you don't see the deformation like that. The only place it can happen is a rifted basin, where you have a Horst and Graben structure. You are very right. Yes, Santanu.
Me?
Hi, Harchandra.
Yes, hi.
Yeah. So I have a few questions and few concerns.
So first thing is that, I mean, you started your talk saying that the rocks you'll be showing or the area, they don't belong to Himalaya, if I'm right. And then another statement came when you were discussing with Professor Jain that Manas River is where Himalaya ends. So I would like to first understand, Nichunda, that what is Himalaya? I mean, how do we define Himalaya and which context? And then I may come to other questions.
Okay. As I mentioned, the first thing I should tell that I really don't have any first-hand idea about the Bhutan geology. I was just looking at the map, and I had the same questions as Professor Jain and you, that if these are not Himalayas, then first thing, what are these? And second thing, where does Himalaya end? And the Manas River and the...
Nichunda, so the question is, let's fix the reference frame first. First, define what is Himalaya. Let's understand that first, and then we tell, okay, this is Himalaya, this is not Himalaya.
So Himalaya, I'll call geologically, I'll call Himalaya are the places that contain Himalayan rocks, which we call the Sivalics, Lesser Himalayan, Central Crystallines, and Tethyan sediments. Where we have this package, that's what I call the Himalayas. Where we don't have rocks the same age or same type of rocks, I would not call that geologically Himalayas. Physiographically, yes, they are still Himalayas, yeah. Part of the same mountain.
Okay. So, I mean, the similar rocks are seen in these places. I mean, I never walked in Arunachal, but I walked in Nagaland and things like that. And the Ophiolites we saw there, which at least from literature I figured out, but of course we worked extensively and other things, but they are collisional Ophiolites, and their deformation pattern I walked, and the metamorphism, you exactly mentioned the blue schist, because the omphacite kind of minerals are there. So they are very similar to what we see in the Ladakh Ophiolite or in Nidar Ophiolites and so on, deformation point of view. But you cannot date the deformation to be very specific. So I cannot comment on that. A similar thing may happen globally at different places in a similar time or different time. That is fine. But one major concern is that when you claim this, I mean, I always welcome contradictory views. Did you correlate this with geophysical data in that region? Because there are works on shear wave velocities, and then there are not detailed, but GSI certainly has done. It's not very high resolution, but the scale you're talking about, there are gravity anomaly data. So that should be matched to see that whether it is really there, whether there is any discontinuities that you're talking about, and whether it is making sense or not. And in that sense, I can share in the chat, if you can, in the chat, I think 2016 or 17, Professor Sagorika Mukhopadhyay from IIT Roorkee, with her group, she wrote a fantastic paper. I really liked it. Very thorough work on the shear wave velocity structures and tomography of northeastern Himalaya. So, if I remember the images and figures correctly, there are not any such discontinuities, Nichunda. But again, I mean, not necessarily you have to have these discontinuities, because the geophysics what we see today is actually the picture of today. It's certainly not what has happened in Permian. It cannot record it. So I really like it, but I think it requires substantial evidence and support. But mind-blowing talk. I never thought it that way. Thank you.
No. See, the point is, firstly, your observation about the Nagaland Manipur Ophiolites, that's a totally different story, different ball game. What you see in Nagaland Manipur Ophiolites is the subduction, or collision between the Burmese plate and the Indian plate, or rather Burmese plate. Basically, we are lucky that in Namdhapa region we have a triple point where three plates meet, which is pretty rare in the world. One side you have the Tibetan, the Asian plate, you can say. One side you have the Indian plate, and then you have the Burmese plate. The three are meeting there, and all around the Burmese plate, both along the Manipur, along their western margin and northern margin, we have blue cyst. And I said, yeah, and that's what I mentioned about the Abor, about the Wadia and Tiding. I said there's no blue cyst anywhere. On the other hand, if you look at the rocks, I mean, I have pictures also I can show you. You see there's a volcanic rock with randomly oriented tremolites. I said it's a total, there's no deformation at all. You have a random orientation of phenocryst within the rock. So I said, that's very different.
Yes, same thing you see also in this very similar actinolite, tremolite assemblage. We also see in Nagaland, and it is Nagaland Ophiolite that there is still a debate whether it is a real suture zone or it has drifted, or actual suture zone is somewhere in the Myanmar, because there are two belts of Ophiolites running parallel to each other. Whether it is still rooted or offset, so people are still working on that. I mean, there is no enough geological data on this yet. But anyway, please continue.
Myanmar, lot of work has done. Actually, I have a huge map of Myanmar right here on my wall, and the two Ophiolites are fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with two Ophiolites. In Tibet also, you have two Ophiolites. You have the Bangong Newjung suture and the Indus Ophiolite. The same belts continue over there. Between Sibu Masu and Burmese block, you have one Ophiolite. Between Burmese block and Indian plate, you have another Ophiolite. So that's fine.
Absolutely, and that's my point. So these two parallel belts are continuing.
Possibly, well, the Nagan and Manipur possibly turned right around the Burmese block. It curved around.
Yeah.
And coming back for geophysical data, firstly, as you said, that we are seeing present day data, and what you see in the geophysical maps are basically a plot of, say, earthquake wave velocities. You see blue and red and yellow colors, and then you interpret it any way you want to. So supposing I see two blocks of blue with some red in between, some people say that's a slab window, but I'll say, that's a host and graben. So it all depends on how you interpret it.
Okay. It's not that easy, but are you coming to RDS? Then we can discuss more.
I cannot, but I'll be in Shillong in November. Come down there.
Okay. But anyway, thank you, Neptune. It was very thought provoking.
Yeah, that's what.
So if I go to the field, I'll look at it in a different way. So that's
the purpose. I threw it. I threw a piece of rock in a beehive, and I said, let there be some, thinking. Let people protest. Let people object. Let them find out the weaknesses or the strength of my evidences. Let there be some debate.
That's the purpose. Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Dilip.
Okay, Professor Peru, Neptune, I know your name for a very long time, but your name did not make any sense to me because I do not know which part of the country you are from.
I hope my talk made some sense to you. Forget the name.
Yeah. Yes, but I have heard about you for a very long time.
I hope some of that was good, at least.
Yes, it was all good. The one question that I have in my mind is that what was the rift axis in this part that you described?
Which one, the Permian or the Cretaceous?
Both Permian and Cretaceous.
Cretaceous rift axis was along the west coast of Australia that you see there, and some people believe that this rifting is related to Kerguelen plume.
No. I am asking about the present day. What is the rift axis?
The present day rift axis in Indian Ocean, the mid-oceanic ridge has rotated quite a lot actually since then. But it would be somewhere between India and Australia.
No. What I would like to understand is what is the present day rift axis in the western Arunachal Pradesh, where you describe the rocks.
In the western Arunachal Pradesh, well, I mean, the ocean is gone. The continental rift axis is roughly along Abor volcanics. That's where we see the rift sediments.
that is north-north west, south-southeast. Is that right? No, I don't know.
That is north-northwest, south-southeast, roughly, yeah. And if you notice, the strike in the Western Arunachal is very different.
Strike of?
Strike of the rocks in Western Arunachal is very different from the strike of rocks in Eastern Arunachal.
Yeah, Eastern Arunachal I know. Western Arunachal I did not work, but I worked on Assam-Arakan Fault Thrust Belt. So if it is north-north to south-southeast axis, then on your map, right at the beginning of your talk, you showed a lot of thrust surfaces. Is that thrust surface or normal faults? I'm not sure.
In my map, I have not shown any fault. But there are faults. I have not shown it because what I think these are all normal faults that's been rejuvenated as thrust now. I mean, that's a different talk. But in GSL maps, in other maps, you'll see lots of thrust there. But as Sumit also mentioned, many of these are not really, these are now looked at, they look as, they appear as thrust now. They are now thrust faults, but possibly they originated as normal faults. You don't see much deformation around them.
Possibly, okay. So it's a good talk and it's a different way to think about the Himalayan evolution.
And what you, if you go and look at the gneisses there, you'll see all the gneisses shows folded boudins. You have boudins that got folded. So that indicates there's been some earlier extension followed by compression.
Well, folded boudin does not necessarily mean that.
Yeah, you know, people say that around the limbs of folds also you get boudins, but that I felt, you know, if you look at the
boudins cannot be related to the rifting because you are talking about a completely brittle structure. And these boudins must have been deformed in a relatively flowing ductile matrix. These boudins could have formed possibly. So they may be unrelated. Boudins may be older.
No, what I feel is the boudins formed at the time of extension, and when the collision followed.
It's a shear fracture boudin. Whether it is shear fracture boudinage?
No. I mean, the shear structure that the people call, you know, you get on the limbs of the folds. No, these are not those. You can see the boudins got totally folded around hinges of folds.
No, what Professor Chattopadhyay was saying, Neptune,
yeah,
he was saying that that boudin that you are talking about, the folding, this has formed in the earlier stage somewhere. That has been folded later. So he was saying that these boudins are earlier. That's all.
Yeah, fine. Yeah. That's what I am saying also. That means there was earlier extension followed by compression.
But for that extension, deformation that you were talking about, that's only in the crustal scale, crustal depth, right?
That's only at crustal depth, yes. Well, so mid-crustal.
And after that, if you fold it, I don't know. How can you do that? That's
so imagine. Well, think about it. I mean, I appeal to the structural geologists here to think about it, that you are getting ductile deformation at mid-crustal depth, that causing the boudins, and that causing those intense folding also there. So only place where you get so much ductile deformation at shallower depth is on a rift basin where you have a upwelling asthenosphere where everything is heated up.
Yeah, true. That can be another factor. Yeah, I agree.
Yes.
Well, I have to put a cautionary note.
Yes.
Because a fold does not necessarily mean it is ductile.
Yeah.
Number one. Otherwise,
no.
At a high temperature, because you get folds and boudinage in sedimentary rocks also.
Yes. Yeah, but here we are talking about, you know, like the type of folds we are seeing in the gneisses, for example. I can show you some pictures also, perhaps. Yeah.
Yes, you have boudins and then they are refolded, folded again. And that can happen. It is not very early, very late. It can happen all in a continuous deformation.
Possibly.
And even, sir, it can happen at the same time. Folding is happening and boudinage is also happening.
No, folding and budding happen at the same time. Usually they say that along the limbs of the folds, you have shear and you get extension there, and you get compression near the hinges. That's very different. When you look at these rocks, as I said, appealing to the structural geologists, go and look at them with a different eye now. I believe that actually, again, I'm kind of jumping ahead a lot, but I had given talk earlier also. I think all Himalayan metamorphism are pre-collisional.
No, but
they are related to extension. Not only Himalayan, all orogenic metamorphism is extensional and rift related.
No, but what I was just asking is that, what is the accompanying evidence to think that the buddins and the folding of the buddins is seen or posed to that horst and graben type large-scale extensional tectonics? It would be completely independent, and because it is hosted in an old gneiss, which is Proterozoic or even older. So it could be a very
earlier than the effect.
I can give you some evidences in support of that.
Neptune, hello.
Yes.
Neptune, these folded buildings or other structures that what we are discussing about are mostly seen in the gneiss segments, which we call the Bombdilla gneisses and others, which were dated 1700 million years. So those foldings, Buddin formation and others, the stretching and then followed by compression, those may be Precambrian features, much older features. So why they may not have any relation with the Proterozoic rifting that we are discussing about. That's what I was thinking.
In Arunachal, you have two very different types of gneisses. You have the gneiss at Bombdilla proper. I'll call that as the Bombdilla gneiss. That's basically an ortho gneiss. You can see, spherulitic or apikivi-like structure in feldspar there. That gives you 1750 million year zircon ages. Yes. But the banded gneisses that you have, along with these metasedimentries, and that's what almost entire Arunachal Pradesh is. You have the metasedimentries, you have quartzites with banded gneisses. Those banded gneisses, a lot of places you'll feel looks like metarrhythmites also. The gneissic banding is not metamorphic banding, but it's original primary banding that we are seeing there. And age of metamorphism or that age of formation of gneiss is much, much younger.
Much younger.
Yes. And coming back to the earlier question, that how do we know that metamorphism was pre-Himalayan and stuff like that? See, nowadays, people look at metamorphic minerals, index minerals like garnet, along the Himalayan, like central crystallines, for example. Within the garnets, you see rotated garnets. Within the garnet, they get monazites. First thing you see, the foliation wraps around that garnet. And that tells us that the garnet predates the foliation, or at least the early synkinematic. And now everyone says that foliation and the thrust planes are parallel, and the foliation and thrustings are contemporary. If foliation and thrusting is contemporary, and if garnet is pre-foliation, then what made those garnets? Not only that, within the garnets, we get monazite inclusion in central crystallines. Those monazites give ages of 50 million years. Now, India-Asia collision took place as 50 million years. That deformation front will get to central crystallines at 30 million years. Take 10, 20 million years to get the deformation front to what was the present site of central crystallines. So the metamorphism would be 20 to 30 million years old, not 50 million years old. But now we are seeing that the age of formation of garnet is 50. That indicates that it's not something very old. That extension, or whatever the metamorphism, was just predating India-Asia collision. And these are not post-collisional. I think our total idea about orogeny needs total revision. After collision, you get a second metamorphism. These are all polymetamorphic terrains. The same thing you see in Aravalli. You go to any folded orogenic belt, you see polymetamorphism. The earlier one will be related to rifting, and then post-collisional, you see the overgrowth, the second one. That's my other story.
Yes, very involved arguments. Okay, that's very convincing. Okay,
but with the date, 50 million year, 40 million year date, you're saying within the garnets in central crystallines. That means metamorphism was 40, 50 million years old, and that predates India-Asia collision. Okay.
May I have some comment on this? It's excellent.
Yes, please. Yes.
It's a really excellent talk. And I had been to your place in Dibang Valley once. That's in Mayodhya, that you told. So, and I found, in fact, I was also, I went there just as a visitor with one geologist who was working on this for a couple of days. And I also found in the similar way that there are no Ophiolites, and in fact, there are no, Tethyan sediments are also absent there. But Mayodhya is just in the front of the mountain. Just after rowing, you have the Mayodhya.
Yeah.
And
Gneiss and Mayodhya, yeah.
And from Mayodhya, I think you have gone there. From Mayodhya, you will get another thing, Pargasitic amphibole or something, a vein type of thing, which petrologists, they used to say that this is due to water-rich reactions and all. So can you just, I'm just asking you if you can relate this thing with your rift model. Because you are right in a way that I have not seen very, really very deep sediments there. But I was shown that a horizon, which is a black color horizon, which they are recognized as charty layer, which is really ocean basin sediments.
Chart forms in shallow marine also.
Yeah.
You know, when the groundwater and ocean water meets, you get charty deposits there.
This is chemically deposited chart, which you can only have in the ocean basin, I think.
So deep ocean you get chart, but everything else there indicates shallow ocean. So one chart band, as I said, chart can form in different ways. You can get chart in lakes also, in lacustrine environment too. And if you look at the rocks interbanded with those mafics and ultramafics, you have gneisses. You have limestones which have been analyzed and been told that they formed at a hypersaline shallow condition. So how can that be oceanic, deep oceanic things? You don't have anything there that indicates deep ocean, and you don't have anything there that indicates high pressure metamorphism. It's
true.
And the problem is, and that's why we go into highly contorted geological models to explain these things. Haprof's work, the thesis is not there. What he says, the entire thesis got subducted without any trace. Come on, in geology that doesn't happen. And if the entire thesis got subducted, see what happens in the India-Asia collision zone. When the leading edge of India gets subducted, continental subduction, you get such high Himalayas. The Arunachal thing. Then you see another model where they to explain Mayodhya, they put another arc there. But there's no arc volcanics or magmatism, so they put a huge thrust and say everything's been covered by the thrust. These are desperate attempts to explain that. Look at Acharya Sahib's map also. You know, he called the nicest central crystallines and the Abor volcanics as a big window. And he put above the Abor there's the lesser Himalayan horse. There's a horse-like structure, and above that we have the central crystallines. But these are, as I said, desperate attempt to explain our person's understanding of the geology there.
So for example, you are saying that these are all pre-Himalayan deformation, but anyway it is in continuation with the Himalayan.
No, the rifting is pre-Himalayan.
Of course.
After India collided, the central or North Lhasa block that turned around in India. There's a clockwise rotation about almost 90 degrees. That rotation is pushing against the Indian plate, and we are seeing all this deformation there. Not only that, from the south also the Burmese block is pushing against the Indian plate also. So possibly we have two directions of compression going on there, one from the south and one from the northeast.
So as I recall the question of Professor Dilip Mukhopadhyay sir, what was the axis at the present context? Then you were saying that it was east-west, now rotated to north-south?
I'm trying to think, because see, the axis originally was 134 million years back.
No.
when India was at 58 degrees south.
Before just the collision, just before the collision.
Today.
Okay.
If I go to the field, how would be the axis?
I think all we have to do is look at the ocean map of the ocean bottom and see where the spreading axis is now.
No, you
in the
cannot
Indian
go
Ocean.
there. You cannot go there because you don't have that ocean. It has already subducted and it's done.
That part, yeah, that part is all gone because, yeah, that part, the ocean was there. That's where you see the Assam tertiaries. It got filled up with sediments there. And also you see in Burma, also you see Chinduin Basin and all those basins there. That's possibly filled it. I have to look at the Burmese geology some more.
Another thing that I want to add here, because we were discussing, somebody said about the marine incarnation in the, I think Anupamda said, in the Gondwana. This we see in the Darjeeling Himalaya also. Just adjacent to your Gondwana formation, you have Chunabati formation, where people have said this is a marine deposit in the GSI reports and all.
And it's quite possible, Shantanu, it's quite possible that the Rongit window that we talk about so much with the Gondwanas and Lamprofite dikes and the limestone that we call Baksa, that also might be a rift basin. That most likely is a parallel rift basin. That's not, we don't have, such huge.
You see, you are talking again a different thing, because Baksa is a Cambrian.
How do you know?
The date, people said this is Cambrian.
From date of the stromatolites.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you have to see how reliable.
Now, along the entire stretch of the Himalaya, you have lot evidence of Cambrian origin.
If you look at Baksa, it's totally unmetamorphosed. The limestone that's there in the Rongit window, the Gondwanas are unmetamorphosed. And on top of that, you have the Darjeeling gneiss sitting there. So I was wondering why they didn't get any metamorphism.
No, Darjeeling gneiss is emplaced there in through thrusting, right?
Yeah, thrusting is there. That was possibly also. That's what I'm saying. That could have been a normal fault. Because it's difficult to think that the Gondwana contains all the way to Rongit window.
No. Gondwana, where there are Gondwana, you will definitely expect some normal fault to occur. Otherwise, basin would not have occurred.
Exactly. And one thing I want to tell: think about basic geology, the Wilson cycle. Wilson cycle says a continent rifts, an ocean opens up, that ocean subducts, the continents collide back again, and you get a mountain belt. So all mountain belts started their life as a rift. And remember, the rifts are the major, that's the place where you get most heat. That's where you have mantle upwelling. And the major driving force in geology is, and especially in structure and metamorphism, is heat. By collision, you don't get heat. By collision, you cannot produce granite. Formation of granite is an endothermic reaction.
Of course, you can produce granite in the other part.
Small amount along the thrust zones, yeah. But not like the Himalayan granites. But these are things. Okay. These are things to think, And
thought-provoking talk, and I liked it. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Just one question that I have after you gave your talk is that you say the Himalayan ends somewhere and then this rifting zone starts somewhere else. So what will be at the contact of these two kinds of tectonic setting? On one you have virtually north-south compression, and one you have east-west extension. And what will be the contact? Where will be the contact that one can go and see?
Sure. Where exactly? I don't know. I had thought about Manas River because that's a big gap there, kind of topographic gap I saw along the Manas River. And then we have the Black Mountain Formation where you have Tethyan sediments even near the foothills, which means, the Himalaya, that was a coastal area there, which means the Himalayan, the margin, the plate margin, the continental margin that the Himalayan represented ended there. That's my thought. But Sumit also mentioned some places, Jangpangi's map with the imbricated thrust slices with gneisses. That's where structural geologists can go and do very good work.
What one should expect in such a transition zone between the true Himalayan rocks and the western Arunachal Pradesh that you have?
I have thought about that also. You have two cross-cutting, rifts, and in my mind, I have tried to play what it will look like. But I appeal to you guys as a hardcore structural geologist to make a conceptual model and then go to field and check it out. Sitting here at my age, I don't think it will be possible for me.
Even I'm not very young anymore.
You are a
I'm not very young anymore. Yes.
So all the Santanus there,
Santanus there.
Yachudha,
Yeah.
help us with the funding. We'll do it.
Funding for what?
Fieldwork.
Fieldwork.
In India?
Yes.
In India, fieldwork doesn't cost much money. Talk to IIT, talk to Geological Survey of India, GSI. GSI helped me a lot.
Shantanu is one of the richest geologists in the country, and he is asking for fund.
Well, we all know that. We all know we have to work on shoestrings. That's for sure. Yeah.
Okay, let's divert the topic, please.
Mm-hmm.
Let's divert the topic now.
Okay.
Any more queries?
Yes, any further queries?
Okay, please go ahead.
No, I'm just asking if there are any further queries, please.
Okay.
That is the query.
I think, Jyotirma, you can now round it up and ask others to contact Neptune through email. Please share your email ID with everyone, because later also people may have some queries which they can directly send to him.
Sure. And I'll be happy to arrange a Zoom meeting anytime you guys want to.
Great. So I think Neptune sir's email ID is already with the invitation email. You will see it's in CC, so you will be able to find it out. So in case if you require to contact him, please drop an email. Or else if you can't find it, just let me know. I will make the match happen. So, yeah.
And Jyotirmaya, I also want to make a date with this group.
You are talking like Anandavajar match.
That is up to interpretation.
Patro Kendri Sarkari Chakuria. Bhutapurbo.
I think if there is no more queries, let us give a big round
of applause to Neptune, sir. Very, very, very good talk, sir. And thank you very much for taking your time out. And for the rest of you, I'm really eager to welcome you to ISAT Bhopal for RDS 8. If you have not made your reservations for train or flight, please do so. And soon the detailed schedule of the talk will be shared with you together with other information. So thank you very much. The next virtual talk will be after RDS 8. That will be in November. And I think this was the last virtual talk that I hosted. So thank you very much for this opportunity. We continued for 2 years. I think other than only one last month, we could actually arrange virtual talks every month. So that way it was pretty successful with the help of all of you. And the next virtual talk, as I said, will be in November, and it will be announced before that. Thank you very much. So you may log out. Yeah,
just a minute. Before we conclude, Jain Saab is there. May I request? I don't know whether Jain Saab is coming to the RDS.
No, I'm not coming. I'm not coming.
You are not coming. We will miss you, sir. We will miss you, sir. So let us start the next virtual talk in November with Professor Jain sir. Jain sir, do you agree with?
Yeah, in November, we also have the Shillong conference on Northeast Himalaya.
Jain sir. Hello.
Me? No,
Yes.
I would be busy in November.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Which time will be suitable for you? I think we have not heard you for several months now, I think.
Okay, maybe sometime in January.
Okay, yeah. That is great. That's great. Thank you so much.
Sumita, you have a raised hand.
No, I think that's
Okay. Accidental.
yeah. All right.
Okay.
Then thank you very much. I wish you all a good evening, and Neptune sir, a good day to you. Thank you very much.
I'll go back and catch up with my sleep now.
Please go ahead.
Bye. Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed this meet.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.